Happy St. Patrick's Day everyone! Thank you for coming back to see me make another mess in my kitchen. Today I'm making green velvet whoopie pies in the shape of shamrocks. To make them I use brown sugar, plain flour, butter, baking powder and some salt, cocoa powder, an egg, vanilla extract and green gel food colouring. I also had to use buttermilk, so you can't really get that in the UK, so I used some semi-skimmed milk, added some lemon juice in it and then let it curdle for about half an hour. I started by whisking up my softened butter until it was nice and light and fluffy. Then I added my brown sugar and combined it by whisking again for probably about 3 minutes. Once it was nice and combined, I added my egg and then continued whisking. Once it was nice and pale, I knew it was ready, and then it was time for the dry ingredients. I popped the flour, baking powder, salt and cocoa powder into a sieve and then sifted all the dry ingredients before folding it in gently so that when I turned the whisk on it didn't make a massive mess. Once it was combined, it was time for the buttermilk, so I poured all of it in before giving it a final whisk until it was nice and smooth. Once smooth, I added in my green food colouring and then just kept on adding until I was happy with the colour. As you can probably tell, whenever I use food colouring I get it all over my hands, so I look like the Hulk for the rest of the day. I measured some greaseproof paper against my baking tray before drawing my design. For this I used a heart-shaped cookie cutter and drew 3 hearts to form my shamrock. I drew it quite dark so that when I flipped the paper over you could still see the shapes, and then I drew 3 more shamrocks onto the sheet. And as you can see, it's still completely visible even when it's on the baking sheet. Using a piping bag and a wide nozzle, I filled in my design on the baking sheet. My mixture was a little bit wetter than I wanted it to be, but it was still holding shape, so I was pretty optimistic. To finish piping, I gave my tray a few taps just to knock out any air, and then I backed it into the oven on about 200 degrees for about 8 minutes. Then when they were finished, they looked like this! Okay, it didn't look like that. It looked like this. My mixture was too soft, the designs were too far together, and I had to start again. So this time I drew 3 shamrocks onto a page and I spaced them out a little bit more, and as you can see even the hearts are a bit more spaced out. I put these in the oven for exactly the same amount of time and then they look like this! Okay, I'm lying again. They actually look like this. As you can see, there was more of a shape to it, so I knew I was onto something, so I gave it one final shot where I drew 2 on a sheet and I spaced the hearts out really far apart. This time I used a much smaller nozzle and then piped them out quite thin and then built up a few layers so that it kept its shape a little bit more. Then before realising that the tail should go the other way, I put them in the oven and they actually did look like this. For the filling, I made some homemade marshmallow fluff. To do this, I used some mini marshmallows, some milk and some vanilla extract. I heated that on the hob until it looked like this. Then I waited until it cooled down. Whilst that was cooling, I whisked up some salted butter, and I actually used salted butter to have that nice sweet and savoury taste. And then I added the cooled marshmallow into the pot before whisking it up until it was smooth. Don't worry, it's pink now, but I added a bit of green food colouring and it turned into this lovely light pale green. Now my whoopie pies were cooled, I could fill them. So I took my marshmallow fluff and just piped them into the middle, and I did actually only end up with 1 shamrock, but I had a load of whoopie pie trimmings and I didn't want to waste them. So I actually cut them into hearts and then filled them individually as well. Not only did this help me save the trimmings, but it actually formed really nice serving sizes. Not that you can't eat a whole shamrock, obviously, but with all the beer and the sugar, you don't want to be sick now, do you? The other nice thing about doing the hearts is you can actually arrange them to look like shamrocks, so it's a nice little cheaty way of doing things. So here they are, as is my cat Yorda. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye!